In this course, you'll learn how to use Squarespace for creating professional-looking websites without writing a single line of code. Let's go. All right, so let's face the harsh reality. Not everyone is a developer or a designer. And before you ask, no, that logo that you designed in Microsoft Word doesn't count. Let's say you're just a normal person who wants a website. Well, you can start learning about design, development, and after a couple of years, you can make your own website from scratch. Or you can hire someone to do it for you, and you'll have your website in a few weeks or months. Or you can use a platform like Squarespace and make your website in a matter of days or even less than that. And that's exactly what we'll talk about in this course. But hey, if you're just meeting, my name is Adi Pordila. I'm a web designer / developer, and my goal with these courses is to help as many people as possible become better web designers and developers. Now, taking a look at the course structure, we'll start by creating an account and picking a template. Then we'll move on to customizing the pages, adding and editing content, and styling the website. You'll also learn how to create a blog with Squarespace and also a store. The final 2 lessons are about working with contact forms and publishing the website with Squarespace. And this is a course aimed at beginners. You don't need any coding or design knowledge because Squarespace takes care of those things for you, which is fantastic. Now, speaking of fantastic, I want to quickly tell you about a resource that I use all the time, Envato Elements. Get unlimited downloads of WordPress themes and plugins, web templates, and UI kits with Envato Elements. That's millions of creative assets all ready to use and with simple commercial licensing. Plus, no lock-in contract means you can cancel anytime. Subscribe now with the link in the description. All right, so with that short introduction out of the way, let's move on to a slightly longer introduction to Squarespace. So coming up, you'll learn how to get started with the platform. Now, first of all, what is Squarespace? Just in case you haven't heard about this, Squarespace is a website builder, basically, and it allows you to create some pretty awesome websites without writing a single line of code. And you can have pretty complex websites with blogs and e-commerce integration with checkout and inventory and products and all that good stuff. So it's a very, very capable platform. And the very nice thing about it is that anyone can use it regardless of their technical expertise, so to speak. So you don't need to know coding or anything design related because Squarespace has a ton of templates you can choose from, and it makes it super easy for you to change the fonts, change the colors, customize the content, add, edit different blocks of content, rearrange them in the page, as you'll see in the next lessons here in the course. But yeah, Squarespace, amazing website builder, very easy to use. And before you ask, yes, the answer is yes, it is a paid product. You do get 2 weeks to try it out for free, but after that, you have to pay. It's not terribly expensive, but we'll actually talk about pricing a little bit later in the course. But for now, let's see how we can get into this platform. What magical button do we need to press to get access? Well, let me show you. So what you do is you go to squarespace.com. You can scroll around to see some of the features, what it offers. But when you're ready to get started, you can click either here or right here. It's going to take you to the same place. And Squarespace actually helps you in these initial steps because they kind of ask you a couple of questions, what your site is all about, so they can offer some suggestions. So let's say that we want to create a restaurant website, right? We're a restaurant owner. We're just getting started. We don't have any money to pay developers or designers to make a website for us. So we want to make it ourselves. So we're going to pick restaurants. By the way, you can skip this entire process if you want. What are your top goals? You can select a couple of things from here. I'm just going to hit skip. And let's skip this one. And Squarespace now takes me to the template browsing page, where we have a bunch of templates to choose from. As you can see here, at the very top, we also have a list of topics we can use to filter those templates. We can also choose the type of template. What do we want it for? An online store, maybe a portfolio or a blog or just a one-page website, right? So you can really fine-tune your search using this criteria. And after that, it just gives you a list of a bunch of templates. And for each one, you can hover and then automatically start with it. Or you can preview it. You click here. This opens a small preview window so you can see what it looks like. You can also view it on a tablet screen or on a mobile device like a smartphone. Right, and this is fully functional, by the way. It just looks tiny here. You can also click on View Demo Site and it's going to open like full width in another tab. And then if you don't like this one, you can just click back and just keep on browsing. For this course's demo website, let's go with this template. It's called Vans. And again, we can preview it and we can click here to start with this design, or we can click back and click here, start with Vans. It's exactly the same thing. And now Squarespace is going to start setting things up and it's going to ask us to create an account. All right, so I'm going to log in with my Google account here, but your choice might vary. You can log in with Apple or with email. Now, Squarespace welcomes me to my site. We can actually give it a title. Let's call this Adi's Restaurant. It's a very original name. Let's hit continue. And here it's going to give you a little tutorial telling you, hey, this is how you edit pages or create pages or style your site. But we're going to get to that a little bit later. So as you can see, I have started a free trial for 14 days. And whenever we need to publish the website, we will have to subscribe. Or, of course, when our trial period ends, we will have to subscribe. And we'll talk about the pricing a little bit later. So what you see here is a preview of your website, right? And it's fully functional. And you can go through the various pages and see what they look like. Pretty cool. You can also click this icon here or this button to make it bigger, like full screen. And you can click this arrow to bring it back to this interface. You can also use the mobile preview to see how it would look like on a mobile device, on a mobile screen. Pretty nice. And then on the left side, if you're using this view, you have a bunch of links to the most critical parts of your website. So this is where you can access your pages, your design, your site styles, your icons, and all that good stuff. You can also find links to marketing, right? So anything from SEO to pop-ups to the announcement bar to, any kind of promotion that you would do on social media, this is where you access it, because Squarespace does actually integrate very well with social media, so you can really take advantage of that. You can have different members, right? You can have collaborators that will get access to your website and make changes and stuff. And as you can see, member areas is a feature that's not available in the trial. So sure, you can try Squarespace for free for 2 weeks, but you actually don't get access to everything. If you want the more advanced stuff, you'll have to pay straight away. And then you have various tools like analytics and profiles, and this is where you decide the site availability. So do you want to make it public, right? So publish it. This is where you do it, but of course you'll have to upgrade. We'll have a look at this later. And then you have the site settings. So you can have a bunch of connected accounts for Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. So this is where you connect your social media. So you can, add links for sharing and all the other good stuff. And then under blogging, you have some additional options here, like how to format posts and links, and also things for cookies and visitor data. You can enable this amazing cookie banner that everyone loves. So that's just a quick run through this list of links. And as I was saying, these are links to the critical parts of your website, and you'll find yourself working from this section a lot. Now, if you click here where it says your site title, then we get to some additional options. For some reason, this didn't actually update my website title, so let's do it here as well. Andy's Restaurant. And then you can start adding various functionality like email campaigns, scheduling. You can add your own domain and stuff. So let's actually close out of this. And that's a quick look at the user interface that you get here in Squarespace. And we'll start exploring some of these sections in more detail as the course goes on. But for now, that's how you get started. You create an account, you pick a theme, and you're good to go. All right, so with this longer introduction out of the way, let's actually see what it's like working with Squarespace. And we'll start in the next lesson with pages. Every website needs pages, right? Well, unless it's a one-page website, but usually you would have a home page and then a couple of other pages, depending on the purpose of that website. So, for example, is it a portfolio website? Then you would have pages for portfolio services, about. Is it a restaurant website? Then you would have pages for menu, reservations, contact, and so on. Now, regardless of the type of website you're making, Squarespace deals with managing these pages in exactly the same way. So let me show you. Once you're back in Squarespace, you can access your pages by going to the left side where it says Pages. And here you'll see the 4 pages that are already created for you. And actually, there are 5 pages because Squarespace divides these into categories: the main navigation, and this shows you the pages that are already in the main menu, and then the pages that are not linked. So here we can see the home page. It's the one that we're seeing right here. Now, Squarespace adds the word demo next to a page to let you know that, hey, this is one of the demo pages from the template. But as soon as you open that page from this interface, that word demo is gone. Now, let's say that you want to add a new page. How do you do that? Well, you can either click here to create a page and add it to your main navigation, or you can just click here to just create the page and not have it added to the main navigation automatically. So let's do that. And when adding a page, you have a couple different options. You can start with a blank page, which you'll build yourself. You can start with a page layout, right? So a template, basically, and some other things here that we'll get to a little bit later. Something that you might be interested in, you can create drop-down menus by using the folder. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's call this, I don't know, pizza, for example, right? So as you can see, this is an empty folder. Let's add a new page blank. And I'm going to call this classic pizza. And then another one, blank page. I'm going to call it special pizza. Now, if I want to add this to my menu, it's very simple. I can simply click and drag, and that's going to add it automatically to my main navigation. And as you can see, when I hover on pizza, it shows me the other two options. So I can navigate to the classic pizza page and then the special pizza page. Pretty easy, right? Now, if I want to delete this, I can hover on any page and click this icon, confirm, or I can delete the folder entirely exactly the same way. Now, if I click this button, and let's go with a page layout. And here we have a couple of different categories. Let's say I want to add, I don't know, a team page, something that I can use to showcase the people working at the restaurant, right? So let's choose, for example, this one, Team 2. So we're going to click that. We're going to name it Staff. And as you can see, this automatically added the page as the first item in my menu. I can, of course, click and drag it. And that's going to change its position in the menu. And it's that easy. Now I can go ahead and edit this page, and I'm good to go. And if I don't like the links in the navigation, I can follow exactly the same process. I can either delete pages, I can rearrange them, or if I want to rename a page, I can hover on it, click the cog icon, and I can change the page title to, in this case, maybe just reservations. Okay, and we'll also change the navigation title. It's the one that shows up in the menu. And we can also change the URL slug. It's the one that shows up in the URL, in the website address. So once I'm happy with these changes, I can click Save. Right? Now the menu entry is changed to reservations. The page title here is changed to reservations. And if we open this to see the live preview, you can see that the URL or the website address also shows me the updated page name. And that's how you manage the pages and website navigation in Squarespace. Now, let's assume that you decided what pages you want, you created your navigation, you created your pages, and now it's time to add content, or maybe you want to edit some existing content, right? How do you do that? Well, thankfully, Skillshare has a very powerful visual editor that allows you to do these tasks effortlessly. So it's super, super simple. And I'm going to show you more about that in the next lesson. To create a website with Squarespace, you need to write 0 code. Did I mention that? Well, it's true. For adding and editing content in a typical website, you would use HTML, but Squarespace has a visual builder that makes this task super simple. Let me show you. Let's say we want to edit the homepage of our restaurant website. So we're back here in Squarespace, and what we need to do is click Edit, because currently this is in preview mode, right? I can interact with the page just like it was the real thing, the live page. But to enter edit mode, we need to click the edit button right here at the very top. And this expands the web page to fill the entire available space. And now we have a different behavior. When we interact with it, we start seeing kind of the layout of the page with these blue lines and how it's structured and what kind of elements we have. So for example, when I hover on this area right here, we can see that we have some text. When I hover on this, we can see that we have a button. And when I hover like inside one of these big sections, you can see that we have some additional controls here. I can delete a section if I want. I can move it up or down using these arrows. I can duplicate it, or I can edit that section. So to give you an example, let's say that I don't want this one right here, right? This image, or this section with an image. Well, I can simply hover on it and I can delete it. And that's going to remove it completely. Maybe I want this section a little bit more towards the top of the page, right? So I can, again, hover and I can click the up arrow, and that's going to move it up. Pretty cool. What about edit? I can click this button that says edit section. And this gives me a couple different options. How high do I want this section to be? So do I want it to be a small section, medium, or large? And this basically controls how much space I have between the edge of the section and the actual content. I can also click here and I can change it manually. Pretty cool. Let's go back to medium. Then we also have the content width. I can switch between different widths, or again, I can control it myself. This actually uses a percentage from what I can tell. And then the alignment. So do I want everything aligned to the top, middle, or to the bottom? Let's stick with middle. And then we have some additional options like the background, right? So I can add a background image and I can specify how I want that background to behave. I can also add a video, 1 minute max. I can also add something called art. So let's say, for example, that I want to place this one, right? And this adds this animation in the background, or maybe I want this one, or this one. And again, for each of these, you have some additional controls, and you can click this. You can also change the colors, which is pretty cool. But if you just want a static image, you would either upload it, select from the image library, or you can browse for some stock images. And these are actually taken from Unsplash. So let's search for a restaurant. You can search inside this interface directly. And maybe I want to add, I don't know, this one. So I'm going to add image. All right, and that adds the image to the background of my section. And I can switch the background width from full bleed to inset. So full bleed just means like the entire section. It fills up the entire section. Inset actually leaves a little bit of padding on the sides there. And I can also choose the opacity, right? So how opaque or how transparent do I want the image to be? So 90% opacity just shows me a tiny bit of the image, while 10% shows me quite a lot more. And then we can also add some image effects like film grain, for example, and a couple of others. But for me personally, I'm just gonna leave it at none. So once I'm done with changing this section, I can go ahead to the left side, to the top left of the screen where it says done, and I can hover on this icon and select save to save my changes. All right, and with that, we've just edited this section, and we didn't have to write a single line of code for it. Everything was done visually from the editor. So let's see what else we got here. Let's scroll back up and see about this header, right? So we're going to enter edit mode. And let's say we want to change our logo. This is probably one of the first things you'll do when customizing your website, right? So what you do is you hover, edit site header, and you have a couple of options here. You can go to site title and logo. And let's go ahead and add a logo here. So I'm going to upload a file, and I'm going to choose a PNG image of my logo. And we got to wait a bit until that uploads, and there it is. And now I can play around with the logo height. I can make it as tall as I want. Let's say 80 pixels. That looks pretty good to me. And we also have the option to change or to specify a different logo height for mobile devices, right? So let's say on mobile devices, I just want this to be like 40 pixels high. And I can even use a different logo for mobile, but in my case, I'm gonna use the same one. So once that's done, again, we're gonna hit save. So now if we preview it on a regular screen, this is what it looks like. We have our logo right here. And then if we go to mobile, you can see that we have a much smaller version of the logo. Now, since we're on the topic of logos, let me just tell you that Squarespace does offer a tool for creating logos. And if you do a quick Google search for Squarespace Logo Maker, you'll find the first result right here. And it's a very basic tool, honestly. Let's say Adi's restaurant, you hit enter, and you can search for various symbols. In here, maybe you want to use this one, and you can actually see a preview of your logo in various environments. Here is a business card, website, a t-shirt, and so on. And then you can select the text. You can change the font family to, I don't know, something like this maybe. You can align it. You can change the font color. Maybe go with something like this, the font weight, and the font style. And once you're happy, you can go ahead and save your logo. So it's a very simple, very basic tool. Don't expect to get amazing logos out of this, because all it does is match text with a symbol, with a pre-made symbol. So it's great for very simple stuff like I just showed you, but if you want a logo done properly, then you need to look elsewhere. Now, the logo that I got here is from Envato Elements. It's this one here, restaurant logo. There are tons and tons of logo templates here for you to choose from. And I just went ahead and downloaded this one. I changed the text in an image editing application. And then I exported that logo as a PNG, and I just loaded it into Squarespace. And now I have a logo. So it's really up to you where you get the logo for your business, but these are two options that you might want to consider. Now, let's go back into editing mode, and let's see how we can edit some of the inner elements, so the elements inside these sections, right? So here I have a piece of text that shows me the menu, and I don't really want this here, so I'm just gonna click inside, and I'm gonna delete it completely. So all I'm left with is a nice image. Now, what about this text? Maybe I want to change this one. Well, it's super simple. You just click inside, you select the text, and you enter the new one. And that's it. Maybe you want a different style for this text right here. Well, you can select it. You can choose between the different heading types defined here. Maybe you want it a little bit bigger. Maybe you want it to be bold or italic. Maybe you want to change its color to something else, right? You can do that from here. You can add a link, right? So you can choose where the link will take you using the cog icons. You can choose from a page, from your own website. For example, let's say we want this to take us to the staff. Save here, apply, and now this is a link. And this is a very nice text editor. We can do all sorts of things like change, the alignment of a piece of text. We can make it into a block quote, a list, strike through. We can add indentation, and it's super, super simple to use. Now, what about this button? Again, I can click on it, and I can click again to change the text. And I can even choose between different button types. Very simple. Now, what if I want to add my own content? Because so far we've covered editing existing one. But what if I want to add my own? Let's say, for example, I want to add an image on top of this text or above this text. Well, when we hover on an element, you can see that we have these plus signs showing up, and we can use them to tell the editor exactly where we want that new content. So if I click here, it's going to add it on top of this text. If I click here, it's going to add it between these two paragraphs. And if I click here, it's going to add it below this piece of text, right? So let's add it above. And here we have a ton of elements we can use. Let's say I want to use an image, right? So I'm going to type image, or I can select it directly from the list. Click here. And then it's the same thing. Let's add one. Let's browse stock images, and let's search for Chinese food, right? And let's see, this dish looks pretty cool, so I'm going to add this one. And once we add an image, we can choose whether or not we want to display a caption. I'm going to choose off, and we can add a link to it. We can add an alt text, and this is actually recommended because it's going to help with SEO and accessibility. So let's say, I don't know, noodle dish, something like that. And then under design, we can choose how the image is displayed. So inline, or we can do poster, which means we can add some additional text on top of it. Card, that just adds the text to the side. Overlap, it looks like this. Collage, it looks like this. But let's say I just want like a regular image. So let's do that. We can modify the corner radius if we want. Let's say 8 pixels, and that's going to give it rounded corners right here. And, we have a couple of different options here that you can play around. But for now, I'm just going to click outside. I'm happy with this image right here. And so I'm going to click save. And just like that, we were able to add new content to our existing page. And you saw just how easy it is to edit content as well. Once you're in the editor, you can just hover on a specific section or a piece of text, and it's really easy to change the content, the properties of that text or element or whatever it is. And adding new content is also super simple with these buttons that you can see when you hover on a specific element. It's very easy to know where you add that new element. Now, this is like a pre-existing template, right? But what if you're creating something from scratch? Is there any difference to the workflow? Well, there is not. So for example, let's create a new page. Let's actually add it here. Let's add a blank page. Okay, and we're just going to say testing. So let's go ahead and edit that page. And this is how you start building a new page. You add first a section, and you can add a blank section, or you can choose from a pre-existing one. And there are tons and tons of templates here. But let's add a blank section, right? So we have our section. Next, we need to add the content. And we do that by clicking the plus signs and choosing whatever elements we want. So maybe we can start with a title. Okay, so we're going to say this is a title. And let's make this heading 1. So it's nice and big. Let's align it to the middle. And then we have another piece of text here that we can remove. Let's add something else below this one, maybe like a line separator. And then again, under this, maybe add another piece of text. This is column 1. And let's actually add another piece of text here. This is column 2. And watch what happens if I take this and I move it like to the side. We can create columns, right? And maybe I want a bit more space between these two. That's totally fine. I can add a spacer. Where is it? We can actually search for it, spacer. All right. And again, I can take the spacer and I can place it in between or actually we're going to place it there and we're going to make it a bit smaller. And let's actually move it to the side here. And let's move this right there. Okay, so it takes a bit getting used to, but now we have column 1, spacer, and then column 2. And at any point we can, resize the spacers here, make it bigger, smaller. I can make this column bigger or smaller by changing the spacer. So by using this method, you can really build your own layout if you want to do that from scratch. But honestly, you should be using templates because they just come prearranged with all the elements that you need, and it's much simpler to use a template which you can edit later than to build one from scratch. But if you want to go down that road, Squarespace has you covered and gives you all the tools that you need. So then once you're done, you can click save and you can see your new page. And that's how you can add and edit content in Squarespace. Now, what do you do after you add your content? You style it, right? You add your own colors, fonts, animations, and so on. And this is also super simple to do in Squarespace, and I'm going to tell you more about that in the next lesson. Squarespace has a pretty awesome toolkit for styling a website, and what I really like about it is that it gives you a lot of options. So you have a lot of diversity in choosing the fonts and the colors and even the animations. So let's get back to the editor and I'll show you what I mean. When you get to the styling of your website, you can do it in two different ways. You can either grab individual menus, for example, this section, right? You would click on edit, you would click on colors, and then you can choose from the different color combinations that you have here. So that's one way, is just taking items and styling them individually. And this works for a lot of things. Maybe you want this text to be different, right? You can change the color from here. You can even use a custom color, and you can choose the different presets and properties from this drop down here. But what if you want to make changes that affect the entire website at once? Because not everyone has time to stay and edit each item individually. Well, you can do that. And here's how. So let's get rid of those changes. And once we're back in this interface, what you can do is go to Design. And here you have a couple of things that you can edit right away, like, for example, the browser icon. It's this little icon that shows up here in your browser tab. You can choose how your lock screen looks like if you have your website password protected. You can see how your checkout page looks like if you're using e-commerce, your 404 page, and so on. You can even write some custom CSS if, for example, you want to change an item specifically and there are no options for that in Squarespace. You can add your own custom CSS. But the biggest changes can be done from the Site Styles page. So you can either click this, or you can go into edit mode and you can click the little brush icon here that says Site Styles. And that's going to open up another sidebar where you can control things like fonts, colors, animations, spacing, how the buttons or image blocks look like. So let's start with fonts. Squarespace works with font packs, right? So currently we are using the Able font pack, which adds the Able font to all text in the website. But I can always switch to a different font pack, and I can either choose like sans serif packs or serif or mixed. Okay, so watch what happens. If I select, for example, this New Spirit Condensed, that's going to change the fonts in the entire website. How cool is that? And these are predefined. You don't have to search for fonts by yourself. They're making some recommendations here, and you just choose the one that you like. So maybe, we're going to use this one, Adonis. This looks pretty cool. Or let's see what else we got. Adobe Caslon Pro. This is a really nice font. So I think I'm going to choose this one because I think it works just fine for the kind of website that I have here. So notice that because this is a font pack, it uses two different fonts. So the the main headings and such are using Adobe Caslon Pro, and some of the other elements like the body text and menus and buttons and such use a different sans serif typeface or font, right? And once you're done with this, you can click back. And here, where it says Global Text Styles, you can actually see what fonts are being used. So for headings, as I mentioned, Adobe Caslon Pro, and for paragraphs, Helvetica New. But you can also change this at any time. So if you like a specific font pack, but maybe you like just the first font for the headings, but you don't like the one that's used for paragraphs, you can change it from here. You can click on this, and as you can see, it by default, it uses the second font from the pack, but you can also browse all of the font and choose your own. For example, let's choose Cabin, and that's going to use the Cabin font. And then you have all sorts of controls for how the text looks like. So you can choose the font weight, right? Is it a lighter or a heavier text? Maybe normal or italic. You can choose the line height, right? Let me actually find some piece of text here, right? Increasing the line height, and you can see the changes taking place directly in the preview here. Letter spacing, text transform. Maybe you want to make this uppercase, lowercase, or capitalize. And then for each paragraph type, you can change the size individually. A lot of control, right? So that's just for paragraphs. If we go to headings, again, we can change the font family here. and also all the other properties, but also the sizes for headings 1, 2, 3, and 4. And let's see, this one here uses heading 2, right? So if I want to change the size of all heading 2s, I can enter site styles. I can go to fonts, and I can go to headings. And heading 2 currently is 3.6 rems. I can make it smaller or bigger, right? And that's going to change the size for all the H2 headings. So for example, let's go ahead and exit this, close. If I'm going to change this text here to heading 2, you'll notice it's going to have exactly the same font size as this one. So that's really, really cool. What else we got? Under fonts, we can also change how the buttons look like, right? So currently they're using Helvetica New, and I can change the text style. I think we have some buttons here somewhere. Yep, there we go. So I can change the font size of the text inside the button. So that's for the primary button. For the secondary, I can do as well for the tertiary. It really depends on how many button styles are defined in that template. And you can change them all from right here. We also have some other text styles that are cataloged as miscellaneous, and for these as well, you can affect their properties. So that's how you choose the different fonts, and you change the fonts to match your brand, your website style, and so on. Let's see what else we got. Colors, right? This template uses a color palette, and you can see all the colors that are being used right here. So for example, this section, and you can actually see which color style it uses, bright 2, and you can see it right here as well, right? I can edit this if I want. I can click this, and I can change the section background to something else. Maybe I don't want this blue, so I can either lower its opacity, like so, or maybe I want to use a custom color. Maybe I want this to be a bit more saturated, so I'm going to move the slider to the right side, and now it's a lot more saturated. Or maybe I want it to be a bit more muted. I can move it the other way around. All right, so this updates the Bright 2 theme, which in turn will update all the other elements that are using the Bright 2 theme in our website. It also updated this one on the top, right? Very cool. And also, this is something very interesting. This theme, it's not just one color. It's also the color of the header, the navigation links, the text, all the different headings and paragraphs that are included in this Bright 2 theme can be changed individually from here, right? So maybe I want to change this button to have a different color, right? So primary button background, I can change it from here. Maybe, I don't know, let's go for something like this. All right, it's that easy to change. So now any other element that uses Bright 2 as the color theme will receive the same changes, right? So for example, this one, Bright 2, I think this uses a different button type, right? So let's see. Button is probably a secondary button. So let's see if we change this. Yeah. So the secondary button background now changes as well. Really cool. Let's go ahead and save the changes. Okay, so what else can we do under colors? We have this palette here, right? So if we click it, we can see the color palette. These are the colors that are currently being used in our design, but we can also change the palette to a different preset. And this is what I meant when I said that Squarespace gives us a lot of options in terms of styling. They have these predefined sets of fonts and colors that you can choose from. So maybe you're looking through these and you say, okay, well, maybe this palette will actually be a better fit for my website. So you click it, right? And now this one will be used instead. And you can see we still have some of the styles that we defined here, but also some of the other colors are being changed. Like, for example, this sign up button, now it's a different color. And you can even go crazy and upload an image, and that's going to generate a palette from that image. Or you can choose a specific color, and Squarespace will generate a color palette from that color. So yeah, there are tons and tons of options. But once you're happy with a specific color palette, you can just click on Save and you're done. Now, going back to site styles, we covered fonts, we covered colors. What about animations, right? Because currently the animation style is set to none. But if I want elements to animate as they appear in my page, right, I can choose from one of these. So let's say I'm going to choose slide. Now you'll see that as I'm scrolling down, elements are starting to appear with a slide animation. I can choose the animation speed, maybe slow, maybe let's choose scale. That's a different type of animation. This is what it looks like. See, pretty cool. So you can certainly do a lot with this. What about spacing, right? This is where you determine the page width, the maximum width. Currently it's set at 1200 pixels, but you can make it like a little bit smaller. This will start affecting some elements in the page, right? Like this content. You basically decide how wide you want the content to be. And also, what kind of margins do you have on your website? But I wouldn't worry too much about this. Usually, whatever comes with the template is usually pretty good. And then you also get control over the buttons, right? So in this template, we have 3 button types defined: primary, secondary, tertiary. And I can choose, the text style. Maybe I can change the font there. And then I can decide on the shape. Do I want a square button? Maybe I want a round button. Let's actually find one of these primary buttons. Yeah, it's this one here, right? So this is what a rounded looks like. Pill, like this. Maybe I just want a text button, or maybe like this. And this is with no fill. Maybe I want a fill color, right? And I can go through the different versions as well. Of course, here you will need to play around with the colors a little bit to make it look good. But the point is you have a lot of options. And then you can change how wide the border should be. And if you're happy with these changes, you can also apply them to all the button types. So also for secondary and tertiary. So now the other buttons will receive the same style. You can also change how the image blocks look like. All right, so if you remember, when we added this image, we had the option to choose the image type or the image block type, right? So we had poster and a few other things. Well, this is where you control how those styles look like. So for example, if this image right here was or had the type of poster, this is where you would control how the text is aligned, or the content is, the title separation, and so on. A bunch of options. So yeah, this is how you style your website using Squarespace. You basically go to Site Styles, and this is your main hub for controlling what fonts you're using, what colors, animation, and so on and so forth. And of course, once you're happy with these changes, you can hit done. And now you can see the changes live. And of course, I'm just blasting through these because I just want to show you how to do it. I'm not necessarily looking to style this website in any particular way. That's really for you to decide. All right, so let's assume you've created your website, you added some content, you styled it to your liking, and then you're thinking, maybe I should add a blog. Can I do that with Squarespace? Yes, you can, and I'm going to show you how in the next lesson. A blog is a great addition for most websites because you can use it to write interesting articles for promoting yourself or your business, or for educating your clients, or simply for driving additional traffic to your website. Now, in Squarespace, creating a blog can be done simply by pressing a few buttons. It's that simple. So let me show you. Starting from this interface, we can go to Pages, and let's say we want to add our blog directly to the navigation. This is entirely optional, of course. You can create it here in this section, so not link it right away, or link it right away in the main navigation. I'm going to choose the first option, and you're not going to choose Pages, but instead Collections. Okay, so I'm going to choose Blog, and here you have the option to choose between several layouts for the blog. I think I'll go for one of the classic ones, so Blog 3. Okay, let's rename this to Blog. And as you can see, the navigation contains the correct link now. So I'm in the blog page, and this is showing me a list of all my blog posts. If I click on a blog post, it's going to open up the page for that particular post. Super easy, isn't it? So now in the back end, we can actually see all of our blogs here, or all of our blog posts, excuse me, from the blog collection. And at any time, I can open any of them. I can duplicate or delete. And I can also add a new blog post. So click here. This is a new post. And here I can add my content, right? Hello. And I can edit this blog post just like any other page. I can click here. I can add my elements. Maybe I want to add an image. Let's select one from our library. Let's add this one, right? So a blog post is essentially just like any other page, except it's placed under a page collection called, in our case, blog. So once I'm happy with the changes, I can save. And this is going to save it as a draft. But at any point, I can go back to settings. I can go to options, and then status. I can change this to published. And I can choose to publish it right now. And then I'm going to hit save. Squarespace tells me, hey, your blog post is live. Now you can share it with your followers using this unique link. And because Squarespace integrates with social media and a bunch of other tools, you can actually share it on social media, or you can create a draft about it in email campaigns. This is a bit more advanced. We're not going to cover it in this course, but yes, you can create email campaigns within Squarespace. So let's hit done. And now when we go to our blog page, we can see that we have created a new post. Now, this post currently does not have a cover image. So one way to fix that is we go back to settings, and where it says featured image, we just add our image, or we can search for one in the library or under free images or premium images. This is powered by Getty Images. So let's go with free images, and I'm just gonna randomly choose one. Okay, that's cool. Now, here's another cool functionality in Squarespace. See this white circle? You can actually move it around, and that's going to be the focal point of your image. So if your image is too large and it needs to be cropped down, that's going to be the focal point. So let's say I want the focal point to be on this part of the image. All right, so I'm going to hit save. Right, and now that part of the image is now being displayed. If I were to choose the focal point somewhere else in the image, then this thumbnail would actually show the other part of the image, if that makes sense. For a post, we can also add a quick summary or excerpt here. So we go to settings. Hey, this is a summary of the post. Okay, we can also change the post URL if we want, the author. If we want to attribute some content that's in the post, we can do that here where it says source URL. And let's take a look at what other options we have for a post. So status, we covered this. You tell it if it's a draft or if it's published or scheduled. You can also add various tags to a post, like this one, for example. What else? Nature. You can also add categories for a specific post. Let's say various as a category. Of course, you can add multiple categories. You can enable comments here. You can disable comments at some point if you want. And you can also mark a post as featured. Then under SEO, you can see how your post is going to show up in a search result, in a search engine, for example. You can add an SEO title. That's going to be the title displayed here in the search results, or a description, because by default, the description is automatically generated by search engines based on the content. But if you want your own description, you can say, hey, this is my own description, right? So if you search, or if your post ends up in Google search results, then this is what it's going to look like. Again, here you can change the social image. If you're sharing this on a social network, right, you can add a specific image, and that's going to show up right here. And then under share, you can, create email drafts. I previously mentioned email campaigns. You can create those within Skillshare. And you can also connect various social media accounts here to make sharing a little bit easier. So once we save that, you'll see that the category is now displayed in the meta section of the post, the excerpt right here. And if we open up the post, we should see the tags right here at the bottom. So that's how you create a blog with Squarespace, and that's how you create blog posts. It's super easy. Just remember, you need to go to add a new page, but instead of a typical page, you would create a collection, a blog collection to be more specific, and you're good to go. You saw how easy that was. With just a few clicks, we were able to create a fully functional blog. Now, some of you might say, well, it's not as powerful as WordPress. Of course not. WordPress is like the OG blogging platform, so there is no comparison. But the question is, do you need it to be as powerful as WordPress? I mean, if it does the job, if it performs as intended, and it does exactly what you want it to do you really want it to be as powerful as WordPress? What's the point? It's a blog. Its purpose is to display articles, to show comments, to allow you to share that content with other people, and Skillshare makes that very accessible. Now, a blog is, as I was saying, something that every website or almost every website should have because it's very useful. But something else that you might want to add to your website at some point is a store. So what if you want to start selling stuff, merchandise, digital products, physical products even? Well, Squarespace makes it super simple for anyone to add a store to their website. And I'll tell you more about that in the next lesson. Usually creating an online store can be pretty difficult. And there are platforms, dedicated platforms for that, like Shopify, for example. But what if you already have a website built with Squarespace and you just want to add a store to it? Well, you can totally do it, and it's super simple. So let me show you the basics and what kind of functionality you can expect from a new store in Shopify. To create a new store, we can go to Pages, and let's create a new page. But instead of choosing from one of these three, we'll go again to the collections. But this time, we're not creating a blog, we're creating a store. So let's click that, and we can choose between two different layouts here for our store. Let's go with maybe this one. Okay, so that created our store. Let's call it just store, and it's automatically going to be added to our navigation. And this is what the main store page looks like. It basically displays a grid of our items. In the sidebar here, you can see all of the items that, or all of the products from the store. At any point, we can edit, delete an item, rearrange it. We can also click and drag to rearrange the items. We can always add a new product from here. And let's actually go ahead and open one of these products. And as you can see, Squarespace asks us to select a detail page, how we want it to look like. And I'm thinking just a simple one should do the trick. So the simple layout looks something like this. We have an image of the product, description, price, title, the quantity, and also a button for adding to the cart. And scrolling down, we have some additional information about this product, all of which is, by the way, customizable. So if we go to here, click Edit, we can see the product name. We can see a preview here. And if we click Next, we can actually set up the inventory. So how much of that product we have, either an unlimited quantity or a fixed amount. We can set up the price here. And if we click Add More Details, that's going to open up a bigger edit window where we can change the product name, description, images. We can add multiple images from here. We can select one image to be the featured one. And again, information about the inventory. Do we want to place that product on sale? We can do that. So here's the sale price. Let's say $18 instead of $25. How much do we have? The quantity. We also have a SKU. This is like a unique identifier for that particular product. We can also add variants, right? So if we click here, we can choose from color, size, material, but we can also add our own custom variants, which is fantastic, by the way. Not a lot of e-commerce platform offer you the option to create custom variants. So seeing this in Squarespace, which by the way isn't a e-commerce platform to begin with, is really cool. So you can filter by, I don't know, handle size if you're selling cups, right? And you can say large, medium, small, whatever, right? So now you can organize your products by handle size. So we're going to save that. Now you can also organize your products by category and tags. So you can add those here, just like we used categories and tags to organize blog posts. You do it the same way with products. And then visibility. Do we make it public? Or maybe for now, we choose to make it hidden. We can do that from right here. Or maybe we can schedule it for being displayed or being made public at a later date. And then also we have options for marketing. We can see how the product will look like in a search engine result or when we share it on social media. And then we have some additional options for checkout, right? So custom button, we can add a custom label, hello product, and we can apply that. You can add custom forms, or if it's a digital product, you can charge customers on a recurring basis. So once everything is said and done, you can save this and notice the changes that we made, right? So the product is on sale, so that's being reflected here. We can select the handle size, and we added the custom button text for this product that says hello product. If we open, let's actually hit done here. And if we open any of the other products, this one, for example, this one is using the default settings. So it uses the default button, it's not on sale, and it's just the product that was added by default when I created the store. And if you find yourself in this interface here, well, you can always just click on the store, and that's going to take you back to these items where, for example, you can select the ones that you want to delete. Very simple. And by clicking the cog icons here, you actually get to the store settings where you can change the title, the URL. You can set this as a home page if you want. So if you want your visitors to enter directly into the store when they access your website, this is the place to do it. Then you can see the various categories. You can create them right here, and all the other stuff that was that we actually covered before for blog and some of the other pages. Now, there are also some settings that you can access, like store settings. If you go to the main navigation there, where it says commerce, you have information here about the orders, the inventory, right? This is, of course, a premium feature, so you will need to upgrade. Customers, discounts, but also selling tools like point of sale. If you want to sell on Facebook or Instagram, you can do that here. You connect your accounts, and it's really easy to connect everything, your store and all your products and such. You can also find links to the product reviews. So when you start selling and people start leaving reviews, this is where you would sell them. And then something that you need to pay a lot of attention to is this area right here where it says setup. So you need to set up how you're going to take payments, right? Are you going to use Stripe, PayPal, maybe Square? This is a point of sale, so POS only for United States. you can select the store currency from here. So by default, it's using USD, American dollars, but you can choose this or set the currency to whatever you are using in your country. And then under payments, or under the setup section here, you can change settings for the checkout, for shipping. This is important for pickup if that's a functionality that you want to offer. How do you handle taxes, right? And so on and so forth. This is gonna start getting really advanced at some point, but it's great that Squarespace does give you this functionality. It does give you the option to control all of this stuff. And even though, as I was saying, Squarespace is not an e-commerce platform at its core, it still offers a lot of functionality that actually rivals with full-on dedicated e-commerce platforms, which is fantastic. Now, some of these features like taxes, they are premium features. So you will have to be on a paid plan to benefit from these, or to be able to use them. But yeah, essentially that's how you create a store with Squarespace. Let's go back to our website here. So you go to Pages and you click the plus sign and you select Store, and you'll be good to go. Now, before we discuss about publishing with Squarespace, I want to quickly talk about working with contact forms, because sometimes these can tend to be a bit more technical, so some people might struggle with that. So contact forms coming up. So let's say you're building the website and you want to add a contact page with a functional contact form so that people can send you messages. How do you do that in Squarespace? Let me show you. So starting from the website interface, we go to Pages. Let's add a new page. And the easiest thing to do here is to select the page layout. So use a template. So click that. And under the contact category, we see some contact page templates. And we specifically wanted one with a contact form. So we're going to choose contact one. Okay, let's rename this to contact. And let's actually move it all the way down. So it's the last link in our navigation. So this is the contact form. This is what we want to focus on in this lesson. Now, how do we edit this? Well, we double click to enter edit mode, or we can click this button. It does exactly the same thing. Then we select our form and we click edit. So form name, we're going to rename this to contact form. Here we can change the button text. Let's change this to send message. And then we can edit the form fields. Okay, so we have name, email, and message. This is by default. And on each of these, you can change the label name. For example, your name. You can also add a description like so, and you can check whether or not this field is required. But what if you want to add another one? Let's say we want to add a dropdown that allows the user to select the reason for contacting us, right? So we're going to add a field. We're going to choose select, and let's edit this. We'll call it reason. And then under options, we're going to say, I don't know, accounting, sales. We can also add our own. And maybe this is suited for a department. And we can make it required or not. So let's go back. Let's go back again. And then under design, we can choose where the button is aligned. I'm going to leave it on the left side. And then this is really important. Storage. do not forget to change the settings here, because currently the form is not configured to do anything. But you can configure it to work with MailChimp. So for example, if you have a subscription form or a newsletter form and people sign up with their email address, you can connect MailChimp and get those email addresses very easily within Squarespace. You can also connect it to Zapier for automations and also to Google Drive. If you want to display Google reCAPTCHA, it's that that checkbox that prevents spam messages. You can do that here. You can enter some sensitive information, and that's going to enable it on your website. But if you want to use this contact form to receive messages, so if you want to receive an email every time people fill in this form and send it, you need to configure the email right here. So let's use my own email address. Okay. And then we're all set. Okay, so we're gonna save the changes. Now, if we open up the website, you can see that if I'm trying to send a message like this, it's gonna tell me, hey, you have a bunch of stuff that you need to fill out. So let's fill out this information. I'm gonna say, hello, how are you? Let's send this to the sales department. So I'm gonna send message, and the contact form now disappears. A thank you message takes its place. And if I'm gonna check my email off screen here really quick, yeah, you can see that I did receive a new email from Squarespace saying form submission contact form. This is where the name of that form comes in. Okay, send via form submission from Adi's restaurant, my name, email, message, and department. So all the form information is nicely laid out in this email right here. So it works, and it's really that easy to add a working contact form in Squarespace. But I wanted to make a separate lesson about this because when you go in and you start editing this, things might get a little bit technical when deciding, okay, what kind of form fields do I need, right? How do I add a new one? How do I make it required? And how exactly do I make this form work in such a way that it sends the message to my email address? Well, everything here is done from this storage tab right here. Okay, so now you have your contact form in place and it's working, and you have, maybe your blog all set up, your store ready to go. So what's next? Well, if you're happy with how your website looks like, maybe it's time to publish. So let's see how we can do that in the next lesson. Publishing is the last step in the creation of a website, and with Squarespace you can publish at any time if you are on a paid plan. So let me show you some what options you have in that regard, and also how to work with domains. Let's go. So let's assume that you've finished your website. It looks just the way you want it to, and now you're ready to publish. So what you do is you open up the website interface. And if you don't know how to do that, you go here and you click on website. And then you go to preferences, site availability. Now, if you're on a trial like I am, public is going to be grayed out. So you cannot effectively publish it. You will need to upgrade to publish. While you're still on your trial, you can make your website password protected, but otherwise this is going to be private. So only people with this link will be able to view your site. Now, to publish, you need to upgrade. So let's see what kind of options we have here. As I was saying in I think the second or the third lesson, Squarespace is not free. You do have to pay for it, but it's not incredibly expensive. If you pay annually, the personal plan, which is the cheapest, is just $14 per month, or $19 per month if you pay monthly. And the most expensive plan is $65 per month, which is Commerce Advanced. So you basically have full functionality with that plan. But just with the personal, you get quite a bit. You get a free custom domain, but this is just with the annual purchase, right? So you can buy a domain for free with your subscription. And then you have included SSL, unlimited bandwidth, some video storage, but this is the same for all of them. You have a limited number of contributors in the personal plan, but also you are missing stuff like professional email from Google, premium integrations, complete customization with CSS and JavaScript. This is interesting. And then, of course, you're missing all the commerce functionality. So if creating an online store is your priority, or if that's something you definitely want to do with your Squarespace website, then you will have to pick from some of the other plans, starting with commerce, right? This has pretty much all of the e-commerce functionality. And of course, if you want the best of the best in terms of e-commerce, you would go for Commerce Advanced, where you have stuff like abandoned cart recovery, which is super important, subscriptions, shipping, advanced shipping, whatever that is, discounts, commerce APIs. So yeah, it really depends on what type of website you want to do. Do you want to create a simple one? Then a personal plan is great for you. But as you're getting more and more complex with the scope of the website, then you might want to choose some of the other plans. Now, before we wrap up, let me quickly talk about domains, because with Squarespace, you can buy domains through them, or you can connect an existing domain. So here's how you do that. You go to this main link here, and you click on domains, and then get started. And here you can get a domain through Squarespace, which is pretty cool. So let's search for, I don't know, Addies.restaurant is available, $70 per year. And of course, you can search for your domain here, restaurant addigoodfood.com. This is available, $20 a year. So once you find your domain here, you would add it to the cart, and then you can buy it by filling in this form, providing your payment information, and so on. Now, if you already have a domain, then you would click this button that says use a domain I own. Okay, so for example, I own dipordilo.com, right? So here you have two options. Either you transfer the domain to Squarespace, or you can connect that domain to your Squarespace website, but continue to manage that domain separately from wherever you bought it first. So you have those options within Squarespace. And the fact that it makes it super easy to do, and they also have great support, it means that anyone, and I mean anyone, can build a website like this. So yeah, that's just a little introduction to working with domains and also publishing with Squarespace. But remember, you need to be on a paid plan to do all of this. And that's about it for this introductory course to Squarespace. I hope you found this information useful and that you'll now have a much easier time building with this platform. There are a few other similar visual builders or website builders out there, but I think Squarespace is one of the most intuitive and easy to use. So if you want to build a professional looking website and you don't want to be tangled with various design decision or coding, then this is actually a really good option. With that said, thank you very much for watching this course, and don't forget to check out the Envato Tuts Plus YouTube channel to learn more about e-commerce, WordPress, Adobe XD, and a lot more. With that said, I'm Adi, and until next time, take care.